Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie. I've been avoiding reality part-time since 2006 and full-time since 2010, and just going through a sea of snowboard gear over the years. And this is the Union Atlas FC. Next to it is the Atlas Pro and the regular Atlas. This is the offering for 2023. I rode this with a few different boards and primarily with my Burton Kendos. And I didn't test these as extensively as I did with the Atlas Pro or the Atlas because these are way more niche and they're just a lot of bindings, so they're just not for everybody. But I rode them with my Burton Kendos and got them in a decent amount of conditions. Primarily good snow to slightly messy snow. And to give you a short summary, other than high back rotation, it has all the adjustability of the Atlas Pro and the Atlas, and it just takes it up a notch or two higher than the Atlas Pro, which is slightly more responsive and slightly less damp than the Atlas. For me personally, I love the Atlas. I don't need anything more. And I think most of you out there will identify with me. But if you want something a little stiffer and a little more responsive, a little bit less damp, you can go Atlas Pro. But if you want the most response and the stiffest binding in Union's line, and you just want something close to hard booting in a strap-on binding, then you can go Atlas FC. You're just going to sacrifice a lot of dampness and you're going to get something that's super stiff and somewhat unforgiving. Now, when it comes to weight, these are 2 pounds, where the Atlas Pro is 2.2 and the Atlas 2.2. I weighed this over and over again, and the Atlas Pro and Atlas seem to both be at 2.2. So you're getting a little bit lighter binding with the Atlas FC. Now, when it comes to Highback Flex, this is just unreal. I can't even get a twist. It hurts my fingers. It's causing dents in my fingers just trying to get this to twist, and it won't give at all going back. So if you like a super stiff Highback that doesn't give at all, and the Pro has the same flex as the regular Atlas, and you can see there's a good bit of twist and just a touch of give. So this for me is much better. This is just a calf biter. And you can't rotate the Highbacks because there's only one hole down here. You would have to slide the heel cup, and that compromises adjustability a little bit. So you're gonna have to deal with the position of these Highbacks a little more so than you would with the Atlas Pro and Atlas. Now, when it comes to flex underfoot and butterability, this has that same rubber throughout the bottom of the base. You can see that on the Pro and the regular Atlas. But because there is a stiffer overall construction from bottom to top with the Atlas FC, it didn't feel as easy underfoot flex-wise, but by no means did it feel dead. It just felt a little stiffer and a little less buttery than the Atlas Pro, and especially so the Atlas. When it comes to turn initiation and response, the Atlas FC is massively responsive. It's the most responsive binding in Union's line by far, and it's kind of like that last stop before going to hard boots. It's paired up with a stiff boot. You have a lot of response that I think is close to step-on bindings from Burton. It's a very noticeable bump over the Atlas Pro, and the Atlas Pro is a noticeable bump over the Atlas. The one problem with all this response is the shock absorption and dampness is definitely minimized in comparison to the Atlas Pro, and even more so in comparison to the Atlas. Now, all these bindings have the same rubber pad on the back that isn't very soft, but very damp. And they have that same rubber pad on the bottom. But when you add the different construction that is lighter, stiffer, and poppier, it just does not absorb chatter as well as the Atlas Pro, which has a similar gas pedal that has carbon fiber, but not the same construction throughout the rest of the binding. And in comparison to the Atlas, this has just a more forgiving gas pedal that isn't carbon fiber and has just some really firm EVA foam or some sort of softer plastic. And so none of them do really well with shock absorption like the Falcor does and like the Force does, a much cheaper binding. But the regular Atlas are amazing in terms of being damp at high speeds and absorbing that micro chatter that can sometimes buck you out of a line you set on a hard carve in uneven snow. That's why I still love the Atlas, because I ride all day. But if you ride in mainly good conditions, you might like the Atlas Pro a little better. And if you only ride in good conditions, you might like the Atlas FC a little better. But the minute conditions start to turn, you're gonna feel it way more in the FC than you would the Pro, and even more so with the Atlas. So when it comes to support, I love these ankle straps. They're pretty much the same as the Pro Atlas straps. I really didn't feel much of a difference. The strap on the regular Atlas is just a little different, but very much the same support, same freedom of movement. It doesn't feel like you're totally locked in. You still have that freedom of movement, and the Highback along with the ankle strap and heel loop allow you to do that, but you still don't feel unsupported if you get into lots of messy, chundery, uneven snow that can sometimes stress your ankles and your joints. So I like that. This toe strap I like the best in terms of how it fits around your boot in comparison to the regular Atlas, but the regular Atlas still has an amazing toe strap. These ratchets seem a touch different than the Pro and the Atlas, but it's hard to really say. The toe strap is screwless, not just toolless, but screwless, and compared to the Atlas Pro and the Atlas. But it's all toolless here. And when it comes to adjustability, this is one of the best in the business, but it's not as good as the Atlas Pro or the Atlas, mainly because you have one screw in the Highback. So if you want to rotate these stiff-ass Highbacks so they don't bite into your calf and they line up better with your heel edge, you have to use the heel loop adjuster, and that's not quite a perfect solution. You have to slide one side in and one side out to get a little bit of rotation, and that's a compromise I'm not willing to make, because I love Highback rotation and I love dialing out your boot to fit inside the binding. So if adjustability is really key and you still want a lot of response, then go Atlas Pro. But for most people, I think you'll be fine with the Atlas. But you can still slide out the gas pedal toe ramp in or out to match your boot's footprint. And depending on how you like Highback rotation and your boot's footprint, you can slide this heel loop in or out to match your boot, and therefore center it on board. And then you can turn the discs sideways so you don't have to slide toe to heel, and slide them tip to tail and get the stance width you want. And they come with these same camber discs that all the other Atlas have, and I like the camber disc a little bit more these days over the old full disc that just had one continuous channel, because with the new camber disc, if you compare this with amount of slide space to the regular disc and you set it up with the camber discs, you can get more slide with these than you can with these. These only have some advantages these days if you want to set it up mini disc to kind of fine tune a weird stance situation, like when you get setback inserts and you can't match both in the setback inserts and slide them. So you could put this as a mini disc and slide it better in the two right before that setback insert, and you could slide this better as a mini disc. But that's the only situation where I found this old disc better than the camber disc. And I love these washers. It just keeps shit in line and helps you set up faster. So overall, the Atlas FC is just not for me. It's not my kind of binding. It's just too stiff. It's not damp enough. It's too poppy and too chattery and unforgiving. But if you like the ultimate in response, you have the stiffest, most responsive boot possible, and you want to pair it with the stiffest, most responsive binding possible, you mainly ride in good conditions, these could work for you. And they'll power any board easily. I think if you email me and you're asking for advice, I'll probably try to talk you down to the Pro or regular Atlas. But if you just know you want to go this way, you got the Atlas FC.